for success sakes, what episode is this one?
It's hard to tell when it'll come out, but technically this is the 6th one we've filmed.
This is the 6th one.
Yeah.
We're doing really good.
Yeah, the number 7. We
We're
have to
almost
hit
at
7 at least to know that we've gotten past that first, we consider
Right.
that first
And
plateau.
today
Yeah.
we have a very, very special guest, our first woman guest, which is
Fire.
fire.
More fire than you could imagine.
And I don't even know where to start. I will say founder of Girl Connected, which is an amazing platform to help women in the industry connect and who want to be a part of the industry and mentorship and just an amazing platform. Also, Lola's Media Group, which is an amazing media platform to help artists on their marketing and digital marketing and all those things. Lola, thank you for joining us, and thank you for coming to share the platform. I am honored to have you here, so thank you.
Oh man, thank you. Every time somebody's like talking about like me or what I'm doing, I'm like, that's me. That's great. You're not used to it,
Yeah.
But it's really like looking into your journey and looking at the things that you've been able to create and execute, because not a lot of creators are good at execution. Like they have these ideas and these visions of what they want to, bring to fruition, but to see what you've been able to do and building platforms and creating platforms and taking it and following it all the way through is amazing.
Yeah.
You know what? There's a fear, I think. There's a fear of succeeding in a way that I think is a challenge for a lot of people, because you're like, okay, so if I do this, then what's next?
Yeah.
So Grow Connected, for example, we launched in 2020 was our first year. But I had the concept, the idea was since 2014. I just was like, I just didn't have the pieces all together.
Yeah.
There was an idea in my mind. I had people in my team that we were brainstorming. And it wasn't until, like I said, 2020 that we finally actually, the concept was created. But then now it's like, well, what's next?
Yeah.
And the way that my husband and my team think about where Girl Connected could go, which is this, way beyond what I had initially envisioned in 2014. That's a scary thought, because that requires a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of communication and a lot of people. And then you start thinking, well, these people, I'm responsible for these people. I'm responsible for their growth. I'm responsible for the team that I hire and them getting paid, so I'm responsible for funding and things like that. And so I think that for a lot of creators that have these really great ideas but cannot bring them to fruition, sometimes is the fear of actually completing them, because then you're responsible for this thing you created. Then you're liable for this thing you're created. Then you have to actually not just see it through, but execute it year after year after year to make sure that it grows. And that can scare you. So I think that is the scariest part,
Yeah, it's like you taking a vacation on that work means everybody else is slightly on pause in a way, until it's at least at a certain point that you want to get it to. But I think if it's cool, I want to rewind a little bit back, because I started off just reading your book, which I'm going to say right now is,
oh my gosh,
You're More Than Capable, A Guide to Professional Development.
Oh my God.
So, honestly, I thought of me when I was just getting started, and it was needed for me back then, that was needed for me back then. And it's a reminder now, even things like doing mission statements, checking in with ourselves. I think that's one of the reasons we like this, is the idea that when we get together, we're checking in with ourselves professionally, personally. So I think there was a lot of great stuff there. But then I just went down the Lola rabbit hole, and I was going all the way back. And Payne and I last week were sitting here talking about yo, did you know that she fled Albania during a civil war? And then I was like, I think Sal fled Lebanon during a civil war. And I was just going back through all of this history. We're going through Toronto, which obviously we have a connection to Toronto. And I just wanted to start from the beginning, because I think it's all so connected, obviously. And I want to start at the beginning. I want to start
Jesus.
with Lola as a kid in Albania, and hear about that, you know, and then going to Toronto, and I want to
So
start there.
hope you got time. Hope you cleared your schedule.
Oh my God, I'm sweating. I'm sweating. Okay, well, fun. Born in Albania. As a kid, geez. Well, I mean, it was night. If you look at that part of Europe in 90, I left. Well, I was born 85, but I left in 98 from Albania. So we had my country was communist for a long time, and then communism fell, I think, in 85 when I was born, and then it was a socialist country. So um, we didn't import as much, so we weren't really up to par with everything else that was happening in America. Um, TV for me was still black and white for a long time, and I don't even remember when we had a TV. I don't. It's so crazy to even talk about it now. But it was a completely different world. Me growing up in Albania was completely different from here. I didn't have a telephone. My dad had a bike. He was a university professor. He had a bicycle. Cars were very scarce. So if you had to be like a politician or a drug dealer to have a vehicle, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's like, you know, it wasn't one of those things where you could just go and buy. My parents got their license when they came to Canada because they had to learn how to drive when they moved to Toronto. I still don't drive. I still don't have a license. But yeah, so it was a completely different world. And I remember I was a fan of the Backstreet Boys when I was 13, and I had always dreamed of America by seeing it in pop culture and just seeing it in the magazines. And we didn't even get English magazines. We got European, German e-zines, like German magazines. Kind of like the InStyle or Star or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what we would get in Albania. So Spice Girls, Backstreet Boys, that's kind of like what we got, and that's kind of how I found out about music, and how I found out about America. And then all the films that we watched, we had like, I want to say, we had 3 Italian televisions. We had one Greek channel, 3 Italian channels, one Greek channel, and then the Albanian channel that only had original programming and broadcasting that was done in Albania, which was very scarce again because limited funding, country was communist for a long time. So that's all I knew. And again, like I read about this world through music and through pop culture and the music videos that we saw. And then when I was 13, moved to Canada. We won the lottery. That's kind of like what it's called when you're over there. And my dad had the right qualifications, and we moved to Toronto. We had a cousin there that welcomed us, and that was it. And then it was a completely different world. I had never had hamburgers. I never had hot dogs, like basic shit that you would never even, you don't even think of, like processed meats or cheeses or juices or stuff like that. Like we had Coca-Cola and Sprite. Like I think that at Pepsi Cola, oh my God, that shit was like, we had that at Christmas and gatherings. That's when we would go buy that. So it was just, and it's not about like being, you know, poor or not financially stable. We were a middle-class family, but it just wasn't available. It wasn't one of those things that you could just go to the store and get. It was something that it was used for a celebration. So then you come here and it's just, everything is like, you know, aisles and aisles and aisles of stuff. We didn't have supermarkets. We had a bazaar where you would go, and there was like a clothing side of the bazaar, and there was a food side of the bazaar, and you went and you negotiated with people, and you're like, I want these jeans, and like, okay, there's, you know, $20 Albanian, I have 15. Like that's kind of how you shop.
And
Same
did you
thing
have
for
to
like
learn
meats and cheeses and
English
food.
as well? Did you have to learn English as well?
Yes. So my dad had made an effort to teach us English by reading like British books. But when we learn like the proper way, America speaks in slang a lot, same as Canada as well. So it's like things that you say are more so like an expression. It's not like a proper way. So for me, coming and learning English in Canada was even more difficult because I didn't understand why things were said a different way, because the way I had read it in the books was so proper. So I had learned like just like proper syllabus.
Yeah.
I can't even say it right.
Syllables.
I learned like proper ways to say things. but then coming to Canada and speaking to kids, being 13 and I was in last semester of grade 8, it was super tough. I remember this girl was mad at me, and I said something or I had done something. This girl was mad at me, and she said, "I'm mad at you." And I thought she had said, "I'm mad about you." And I just was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't like girls." And she clowned me, I want to say, for the entire semester. Because I thought I'm mad at you meant I'm mad about you.
Right.
It's just like the at, literally just one thing will change the entire meaning of the sentence. So that was really, really challenging. And for my dad, for example, like that was really hard for him. Like even it took him a long, long time for him to listen to my brother and I speak and understand that we were saying one thing, and he'd be like, "But if you're trying to say this, why would you not say the proper way, this way?" So his English it was a lot harder for him to like pick up on things because he had like wanted to say it properly. So yeah, I had to learn English the way it's spoken here when I came as well.
But you said that you used to hear music. So did you know the songs that you used to?
Hell no. Yo, it's so crazy. I go back and I hear certain records and I'm like, what was I saying?
I was
just, there was no lyrics. So you say the word as you hear it.
Yeah.
But there's no way to know if that is a proper word.
That's very true.
So no, hell no. When I was listening to songs over there, like there are certain things like, certain words that you know what they are because you hear them often, but like no, most of the more complicated words, we were just singing them without even knowing if you were saying it correctly or not.
Wow, but that's how you know.
Yeah,
that you love music.
It's like you said that you had like hamburgers and hot dogs for the first time, but didn't you worked at a fast food restaurant, right?
Yeah, when I first came. So when I first came to Canada, we had like a family friend that basically like got us a job. And I worked at A&W. It was an A&W in Country Style. I worked there for like 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, it was great.
That's wild. Yeah. I think
I still love their burgers to this day, by the way. If I have my choice, I would still choose a teen burger at A&W anytime.
That's fire.
I'm telling you, man. I won't sleep on A&W. I'm not sleeping on A&W.
It's crazy.
It is great.
It's crazy, and I think Toronto is so exciting to me. Like it always has been. You know, obviously we worked with Tori, but just getting to go there and meeting more people like yourself, and one of our business partners is from Scarborough. It's like such an exciting place to me, largely because of the diversity of Toronto. You know, like when we've gone in like the summer and people are walking around, I'm just like, God, like people are just beautiful here and everyone's different. You know, it's like everybody's also hanging out. It's such a sick city, and I feel like anybody who's from there, it's such a part of their story. Obviously, wherever we're from, you know, we identify with it. But I feel like you and your story like largely identifies with Toronto, especially just even how you got started in music through the Toronto sort of music business that was taking place, or the Canadian music business, you know?
I mean, the one thing, it's cool and it's amazing because you get exposed to so many cultures being in Toronto. They say that about New York. They say that about America as well. But like, it's not like Toronto. There's like, yes, there's pockets where like people of different ethnicities and different cultures are like predominantly have like reside. But generally speaking, if you are out and about, you know people from multiple cultures, whether it's Greek, whether it's Italian, whether it's Polish, whether it's Russian, whether it's West Indian, and I'm talking Trini, Bayesian, Jamaican. Like you look at people based on their culture. Like I can meet somebody, I can hear their accent, I can hear kind of like how they speak, and I understand where, you know, just kind of like I understand their culture a little bit because I've been familiar with it in Toronto because I've seen it firsthand. And it's a beautiful thing. When I first moved to Toronto, it was like Albania doesn't have people of other ethnicities or other cultures. We're only Albanian, and that is it. And again, as I said, like we're communists, so the borders weren't open. People weren't migrating to Albania. We don't really even have any crazy natural resources like that for people to come and be like, I'm gonna, you know, set up shop there. People there are trying to leave to try to make it elsewhere. So when I came to Toronto, I just was like, wow, like I hadn't had interactions or experiences with people of other cultures before. So to me, that was super fascinating, and it was exciting, and it was amazing. And I feel like because of that, I was so eager to learn about other people's cultures, so eager to understand like where other people came from, and you know what was about it, what it was about their life, and understand their history. Like I was never even into history like that until I got to Toronto and I got to see so many people. And wanted to learn about them more. And my husband is Jamaican, and he's like, you understand my culture. Like when I met his dad, and I'm big on reggae, and I'm big on his culture because a lot of my friends were Jamaican. When I met his dad, I think there was a Cableton record that was playing at an event we were, and I was like singing it word for word, and his dad's like, what do you know about this song? And I'm like, man, what? This is my shit. So yeah, and it's exciting. You go to events and you go to parties, and I think that influences the music that comes out of Toronto because people have these like different experiences, and they put that in their music. You know, or whether it's the experience, whether it's the culture, whether it's the way music is made. There's incredible producers from Toronto because their sound has a fusion of that music that is a part of their culture as well. So yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's like even in the
maybe
city,
that's the secret sauce in Toronto because everybody talks about what's Toronto, what y'all got in the water. Maybe it's the multiculturalism that's our secret sauce. You know what I mean?
Everybody talks like different in this, like, because it's Mississauga, Scarborough, like, and don't mix the two.
Yeah, Branson. Yeah,
don't mix the two. Don't mix it up what part of Toronto that you're from because it's a problem.
Yeah, it's the same thing with New York. Like you can't, if you're from Brooklyn, if you're from the Bronx, you don't mix it up. You can't confuse somebody who's from Queens and be like, oh, you're from Brooklyn, right? It's like, nope. So it's the same thing in Toronto as well.
Very prideful.
I love like just the idea of the different cultures in Toronto paying respect to each other through their art and music. Like that to me is a key difference. It's like you have people that aren't Muslim that are respecting Muslim culture in a way from Toronto through their art and through their music. Deciding, I know somebody right now that's waiting till after Ramadan to put out music. I'm pretty sure that person's not even Muslim, but it's like that to me is cool. Like that to me is like, oh, that's sick because they have friends and whoever, right, that they grew up with. That's just different family, different culture, but they still live right next to each other, or they still hang out with each other all the time. Yeah, exactly. And it's just I feel like it just makes music that much better because it allows people to share their experiences, and it becomes this like, from whether it's in the lyrics or whether it's in the production, it just allows those different cultures to seep in. When my husband comes to Albanian like parties or weddings or whatever, and he's listening to the music, he's like, oh, this would be a great beat. Like, okay, do you hear that? And he's like, if this was fused with something, oh, this would be a fire beat. Can I get that? Like, and I'm just like, okay. Just because that is like, that's exciting because it's a completely different sound that somebody can sample or whatever cases, but you wouldn't come across that regularly in Texas, maybe, unless not. Like that's a part, like you're around that all the time, or unless it's like a part of your significant other's life or whatever. Whereas in Toronto, it's not uncommon to come across an Albanian and a Polish person and a Greek person, an Italian person, a Jamaican person and a Trini person, all at the same party, all of them speaking their language, all, coming together, all being in the studio together. Whereas I feel like in America at times that they'll be in different pockets. So you'll go to like the Bronx and you'll find, a lot of Albanians. This is what I've been told when I first came here. Or you'll go to like Brooklyn or Queens and there'll be a lot of Russians, so it's like, that's kind of like, what I hear again. No, it's true. I'm Russian.
It's kind of like
from Brooklyn.
It's a melting pot.
I didn't know you was Russian.
Yeah, my family's Russian from Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Russian.
Russian Jews from Brooklyn. Like they landed in Brooklyn years ago, and they stay. And we've only migrated to Long Island or White Plains. At this point, or Florida if you're retired, right? But
it's funny. My dad speaks Russian.
Oh, cool. I've never been, but yeah.
Russian was the second language. Russia was also communist, so Russian was the second language, and my parents in their time had to learn as their second language in Albania.
It's crazy.
No, so boom. Now you working at what years were you working at A&W?
A&W? Oh my God. Shit. 2000 maybe.
How old were you at the time?
Long time ago.
No, but how old were you at that time? Like, I'm trying to see.
16.
When did you decide, like, I want to work in the music and I want to actually take this, I want to connect in this way. Like, this is what I want to do now.
Last year.
Right.
It finally started making sense,
like,
right?
oh,
Recently.
okay.
Yeah, like
You finally
you're
found
like,
your why. You was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is why.
yo, you don't until you start seeing like real progress. You're
Yeah.
like, why am I doing this every single day? It's like, why am I in this? I had for Girl Connected, we did a workshop with Karen Civil yesterday, and it's like it's the same thing. It's like every time, every day, you're like you're your own entrepreneur. You're like, when you're an entrepreneur, you're your own boss. You're your own employee. You're doing your own tax. Like, you got to do all that shit by yourself, for your business, in order for it to grow. So you're just like, every day you're like, why am I doing this? I could just go get a job.
That's true.
Not at A&W necessarily, but I could just go get a job, but no, so I was working at A&W when I was in high school still, and then I worked at a clothing store in the mall, and then I went to university in a little bit outside of Toronto. It's in a city called Kitchener, or Waterloo.
Okay.
It's a tri-city area ish, and I was meeting local artists from there, just at like different events and parties. And I remember meeting this like local rapper who's like, their crew was called Embassy. And I was like, why aren't you guys famous? And he was like, well, it's not easy to be famous. And I was like, well, you put a song out, you get it on the radio, people hear it, you do shows, people come out.
What are you talking about?
Easy peasy. Like, why? That was my
Yeah.
thought process. And he was just like, well, it's not that easy. There's politics, there's different people to go to. And I was like, okay, hold that thought. So I went and like I rented a venue that we used to go party at called Loose Change Louis. And I just was like, okay, what kind of deal? So they were like, you'll get the venue for free and keep the door. We just have to make $2,000 at the bar, meaning like your patrons and whoever's coming in just has to spend the bar, make the bar money. Once you make that minimum, you're good. And if it reaches like 5,000, you can get a percentage of the bar as well. Hey, easy peasy. $2,000. It just means 100 people at $20 a pop. Yeah. I can do that. So I went on different websites and found people that were artists or saying they were artists, break dancers, reached out to the community, people at the school, and I created this lineup. I went and rented equipment, all with my own money, whatever money I made from working in the different. I was working at the bank as well. I had like too many jobs. On campus, I worked at Subway, and I worked at a bank. And then when I went home for the weekends and holidays, I worked at the clothing store, A&W, and the bank, like just at different times.
I was actually telling him, I was like, she's an Aquarius, so like they can't. Like we're Aquariuses too. You know what I'm saying? We have to do 12 things at once.
Yeah.
At once. Yeah, I was doing too damn much. So but yeah, so I started putting the show together, and I was like I called HMV. That was like our store, our CD store, like music locations, and I got them to give me free CDs that they got from their artists. I just randomly called Universal Records from the CDs, saw the number for Universal Records, called, talked to a guy, Kevin Ash. Shout out to Kevin. Kamoya Ash, he sent me more CDs and sent me like bandanas and stickers and just whatever promotional giveaways that they had at the time for their artists, and then contacted United Way, because I figured, I'm like, if it's a charity, people will want to go and want to donate and give money, right? So contacted United Way, and I said, hey, I'm doing this concert. If I make any money, I want to give it to you. Can I use your logo for promo? They were like, absolutely, sure. So boom, I slapped all their logos on the flyer. I didn't make the money at all. I had to pay the difference to make up for the bar 100%. So I came out of pocket. But it was a great experience, and it was really cool. And I was like, this is really fun. I want to do this. But in that process, I had contacted a friend of mine, knew the editor-in-chief at Hip Hop Canada, which at the time was kind of like the holy grail of Canadian hip hop, in the sense that if you got on there, you were recognized and you had stature, and you were an artist that was on the up and up. So he knew the editor-in-chief, and he was like, I'll get Hip Hop Canada to run an ad or sponsor you guys or something like that. So I was like, cool. And then just going on the site, reading the articles, I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. I want to write. This is it. This is my calling. I'm going to be a writer. That's all I wanted to do. So he was like, yeah, I'll get Jesse to give you a shot. And so Jesse was like, cool, I'll send you some pieces, see how you do. And if you like it and you do good, then we can continue. So he would send me artists. I didn't have no EPK, no press kit. This is 2005. Yeah. So there was no like Twitter, Instagram. Yes, there was Google, so you could research. But like, if you haven't put music out and nobody's covered you, like obviously there's nowhere to find the information. So I would have to figure out, okay, how do I find out about this person's backstory? What is going to be interesting? What will people want to hear about this person? So
I would interview artists that I had never heard of before, that nobody had ever heard of before, that were just coming out, that just had a project, that find a way to make their story interesting. And that was my like internship, and I did that over for many artists. At the same time, I also got a radio station, got a slot at the radio station on campus as well. And I had like different people, artists that I was interviewing, or just through the Hip Hop Canada link, had different people call in and do shout outs for me. So that was learning the equipment was really cool, learning the station, like just like that aspect of it was super cool. And then as I kept writing and as my stories kept getting more popular, Jesse gave me the editorial position. I became editor-in-chief. And then I had 14 writers under me that I assigned work to all the time. So the communication between the labels was between the labels and myself whenever they had like Fabulous in market and they're like, hey, we have Fab in town. Do you want to do the interview? Do you guys want him? Or we have Ross, or we have 50, or we have whoever. So which is still the case. I'm sure you guys have experienced it whenever you have an artist in market, their label will reach out to different publications and see who has an interest in the story. So sometimes I would do the story myself. Sometimes I would just find a writer and say, this person would be really good. They write really good stories in this angle. And so I would just sign them work. And I did that for 14 writers across the country for a few years. And I was still writing myself as well. And then I started writing for different publications and a few different magazines. And that's how I met. Funny enough, when me and Karen were talking yesterday, somebody said, how do you guys know each other? I went to write a story on Duke de God. And instead of actually doing the story over the phone, I took the Greyhound to New York, to Harlem, went to Harlem, did the piece, and then took the Greyhound right back to Toronto. And Karen literally came with me to the Greyhound to see me off. Like, yo, it was great meeting you. Like, take care. And that's how I did. I did an interview with Rick Ross. I was like, I want to be there in person. So I took the Greyhound again, came to the offices, Universal offices in New York, interviewed Ross, got to meet his manager at the time, E-Class. And then while I was networking in the city in Toronto, I was working with Director X and his partner, Taj. They had a company called Maximus Entertainment that did like the biggest parties and the biggest events in Toronto. And I was kind of working there like internet promotion, like Facebook 2007, Facebook had just started coming out. So they were like, yo, do you want to come and run our promo online for our events? They were doing tickets still and wheat paste and posters and all that stuff. But online, I was kind of like, because I was writing and I knew the platforms, I knew how to like research information, I was doing that online promo. And I remember we were looking for an artist for our Carabana Saturday. And I had just interviewed Ross in New York and he had Hustlin', which was like the biggest record on radio at the time. So I was like, why don't we just do Ross? Like he'll go up. And so I leveraged my relationship with E-Class. I reached out to him like, hey, I interviewed Ross. We met in New York. I work with XYZ. We have an event happening. We'd love to book Ross for it. And we booked him. And that was like the first booking that I had done. And then I interviewed T.I., kept in touch with Jay Jeter, flew to Atlanta. I actually went to Atlanta in 06 for 6 months just to like interview. I interviewed B.O.B., I interviewed The Dream, I interviewed Future. Just all these different people, kept in touch with their teams. Everything out of pocket. I just was fronting my own money. My mom was helping me out just because she didn't want to leave me stranded, not because she actually believed in my dream at the time. And I was just meeting all these people and networking with them and writing. I was writing for multiple magazines at the time, not just Hip Hop Canada. And I just wanted to give artists an opportunity. Like, yo, you're dope. I was writing for Smoking Section as well. John Gotti gave me a chance to write on there too. And Smoking Section was like a really dope blog where you went to get like thorough pieces on artists that were, that were like legit. And so he was like, you want to write about it? Cool, go for it. As long as you fuck with it, you just don't do it for the clout. Don't do it because the person's hot. Do it because you genuinely believe in this person. So I did a story on Dream on there, B.O.B., a few other artists while still writing for Hip Canada. Interviewed Soulja Boy. I wish I could find those recordings. I gotta find them.
I think that's such an important part of your story is like that you're literally chasing your passion through the whole thing. Like there is you don't want anything else from it but to help people. Just to help.
All I just want to do was just put artists on. But so I booked Ross, and then we had next year. I was like, yo, I was friends with Jay Jeter, so I'm like, we should do Big Boy from Outkast and Young Dro. Dro had Shoulder Lean. Was that Dro? That was Dro, right? Make Your Show.
I think so.
Do you guys remember? That was Dro's record, right? Yeah, I'm not tripping. So we booked them. They came and did a party, Shut It Down with Grand Hustle. So that was really fire. And then that's what got me excited to see artists perform and to have a hand in being a part of that.
Yeah.
So Sorry, I'm like running through it. Is that okay? Like I just feel like I'm just
no, you're
like
like covering a lot of
literally
shit.
all the
Like
I'm
I
pretty
ground.
much
literally
covering
have
all the ground that you guys had thought
Yeah.
of.
Because you're seasoned in this, because
Yeah.
you interview people.
yeah,
Like
you've
done
been on
this.
both sides. Like this is our second time interviewing somebody, but I do think, like, kind of to what Payne was saying too, something that I found really interesting reading more into you before we were here was like, you know, early on in a lot of people's careers, they have a really good opportunity throughout their career to establish relationships. And I find that, like, I can only imagine how interviewing all of these people helped you build like immediately really strong relationships. Like if you care about
Yeah.
somebody and you really have a good conversation with them and you're talking about them and then you're putting it out there when you're saying, like, you know, the way, you know, blog coverage was back then, where it's like you Google somebody and you find, like, you know, an interview
Yeah.
that Lola did, right, which was much more like, right now it's just very crowded, right, whereas back then it's like
It is.
you found a space and you did it in a space that talks about somebody in sort of an intimate manner. It's like I'm so inspired by how that probably helped you build such strong relationships from the onset, you know.
Yeah,
And how
I'm proud to say that of the people who I built relationships with in 2005 are still people that I can like go to or contact or reach out to for anything, even to this day. Like it goes from that idea of genuinely wanting to support somebody. Like for me, was never like, well, if I support, you know, this person now, tomorrow because you don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring. Like I remember, so to continue with my story, I launched my I Love Lola blog simultaneously as I was doing the interviews, because it was artists that didn't fit any of the publications that I wanted to interview. J. Cole was one of them that not that he didn't fit any of the other publications, but I just was like, hey, if I can get an interview with him, I'm going to get it on my blog. And this was, you know, it was something like that. Or if I interviewed an artist that I just was like, was early on, that made sense to me, may not have made sense to anybody else. And so I started doing these interviews for I Love Lola. That's everybody was just like, because I was making shit happen for people. That's where the name came from. Everyone's like, yo, I love Lola. Oh, you're amazing. Thanks.
I mean,
I love Lola.
everybody
And I was
I've
like, you know
asked
what?
about Lola has been like your face is diamond, and it's just not just clean. It's like, yo, I love Lola. She did this for me. You're just, you know, such a dot connector, and just like you've been able to network these relationships and introduce people to people, and they're like, yo, she introduced me to
that
this
was my
person.
thing. Like I was so big on that. Like, it's funny, was not funny, but women now in our workshops ask all the time, how do I make money off of the relationships that I have or off of these introductions? And I feel like it's been my blessing and my curse, because I so genuinely wanted people to connect, because I felt it was the right opportunity for them, that I never thought to say, I want 2% of that record because I was in that studio and I made that happen. I put y'all together, or I want 5%, or I want credits, or I want, you know, a role in your team or whatever. I just was so like eager to just make shit happen that it was my blessing. People just always like, you know, they were like, yo, Lola's amazing. I never heard a no. Nobody ever said, well, you can't be here because of this, because I never utilized my position or my relationships for personal gain. But at the same time, when you look at the trajectory, if I didn't do that, like if you're not doing that, then how are you benefiting from making other people rich? So that is a challenge that comes with building in the industry.
This is interesting. We were just talking about this in another episode about our ego and how we sometimes let our ego get in the way of being just doing something just out of love and out of kindness. Because sometimes our ego will come out and be like, yo, what if I like, am I getting taken advantage of, or like maybe I need to get something out of this, but it's just like, don't you feel just so much better operating in that place of kindness?
Hell yeah. I never looked at it like, for me, if the question was, would you still do this for this person, even if you're not getting paid? I would absolutely still do it. Like 100%. I would love if artists, teams, people, companies recognized when a person, you know, puts something to fruition, but that wouldn't stop me from making something happen for somebody. Like, I think that is just mean to like hold out on someone because you're not being compensated for it. But I do want to say, because I don't want people now coming up hearing this being like, well, I'm just going to offer all of my all my intellectual property willy-nilly for everybody else to make profit off of it, right? So you kind of have to know at what point is what you're doing, creating a profit for someone, and you are a part of the business structure, but not being properly compensated for it.
Sure.
And when you're just genuinely trying to make something happen. Like I've seen plenty of instances where, you know, I've put people together and there's times where I'm like, hey, by the way, for me to do this, this is my fee. And if somebody says, well, Lola, we can't accommodate that. Like I've never been the one to be like, all right, well then I'm not going to make that intro. Like, like I would never do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it would be great. At some point you have to ask. If you don't ask, people don't know. Like there was somebody said, this Jamaican artist called into our workshop yesterday from Jamaica, and she was like, I've done a lot of stuff. This was a question to Karen. She's like, I've done a lot of stuff for a lot of people. I never asked for anything, but I know a lot of people also ask them for favors, and I don't know how to ask without like just seeming like I'm asking. I give hints, and Karen's like, I don't know what a hint is. What is that? I don't know what that is. Like, are you like, if you're scratching your throat when you come to my house, are you thirsty for water, or like is it something like I don't know? So you have to speak up and you have to just ask, and the worst somebody can say is, hey, no, right now that can't happen. So and at that point then is your decision. Do I still want to be like, you know, contributing to this relationship or this partnership, or do I not? And then that's when you make that decision. But for me, I never withheld opportunities from other people, even if they didn't benefit me financially.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough balance. You know, and it's, I think, common probably that when you're young and you're so hungry, right, and you're getting started in something, you're just like, the only thing you care about is getting your foot in the door. It's like, I need that foot in the door. I know something's happening, and I need to keep creating whatever I'm creating. But I think it's a really good question that people ask you that. And I'm really happy that like aspiring female executives or talent are asking you that too, because it's such a unique business in the ways that we make money. Like people work in this business for like 20 years and still don't understand publishing, you know? So it's like, there's so many angles that in like, if you think about it just from a business perspective, it's like, oh, I should be paid for this. I should be paid for that. Like Payne was in the studio those nights, you know, like there's these things happening, but it's right. If you don't ask, you don't get taken care of at times, but it's also this balance of like doing it because you love it. You have to do that first and foremost, or else you won't ever feel happy. And then also like knowing how to ask in a way that like you don't feel weird or feel like you're fucking up relationships, right? Like it's a hard thing. It's something that hard, I think everyone's trying to navigate.
And you also like you want to think like, okay, I am putting in the work. Like when you first start, you're like, yo, I'm paying my dues right now. Although you're actually moving the meter for a lot of things and that you're not getting credit for.
I think my biggest challenge, honestly, was the fact that I didn't have any structure and I didn't have long-term goals. And I think that when you have that vision and you have that structure, it's easier to know how to navigate and when to ask and when not to ask. You still do things out of passion, but there's a purpose and there's a reason as to why you do certain things. I was doing things. So when with the blog, I got opportunities to interview some artists, and Big Sean was one of them. And I was like, he was just such a dope artist. That I remember his team was like, yo, come to New York, we have a show at SOBs, you got to come through. So I was like, bet, you know, I'll take the Greyhound yet again, went down, saw the SOBs show, and I was like, I know these fans, I know where they're at, like I know where they shop, I know the products they consume, I know where they buy tickets, I know their habits, like and I think when talking about, you know, I don't know whether you guys are taking it there or not, but when talking about the music business and talking about marketing an artist or building an artist, the first thing you need to know is understanding their audience. The artist or their team, they have to know who their consumer is and who they're making music for and who's going to go buy their product. So that was my strength. I remember a friend of mine, Josh Dick, he was like, that's your sixth sense. You really understand where the space culturally or even just consumer wise that an artist fits in, and you're able to find a way to present them to that audience. So I saw this Sean show and I was like, I know where these fans are, I want to do this show. And so I reached out to the team like, can I produce his first ever concert? And they were like, okay, where do you want to do it, what's the capacity? But they had already built such a great relationship with me, and a friend of mine, Hustle Simmons out of Chicago, who had introduced me to their team, like everybody just was like, again, saying really good things. So I had a great reputation for executing and for doing really dope stuff. So I went to produce a show. Did I want to be a promoter? Did I have intentions of launching a promotion company or an event production company? nope. I just thought, this was just a dope artist and there was fans here and we could do something really good. And I did a show and I don't think I made any money from it. But it was a lot of people that I asked to partner with, that I wanted to connect with, that I wanted to bring on board, that felt that he wasn't going to sell, felt that he wasn't the right artist. It wasn't the right time. These like hype, really dope shows weren't happening in Toronto yet. Mm-hmm. And so, but I just was like, I know it. I feel it in my gut. I know this kid is going to do really well. And so we did the show. The show was sold out. It was absolutely amazing. I was crying and hyperventilating because I just was like, oh my God,
it worked so hard.
Go to shit. But it was really, really good. Yeah. And that same day, I booked him for a second show. We did 2,500 capacity the next time around. Yeah. And I came to Texas when he did South by Southwest, and he came through at a showcase I was doing with Fadia Cater and Smoking Section. Wow. And that's how I met Sasha, who you guys work with, because he had, it was the first year that he had done the Scoremore House.
Yeah, the Ilmore. Yeah.
Ilmore.
Yeah.
So it was the first year of Ilmore. And that's kind of how you like build with people. And that's when I met Will from, Wiz's camp, and just all these people that you just connect with and you build relationships with over the year because you genuinely want to support the talent. Like I was like, this is not just an amazing artist, it's just an amazing crew and an amazing team. And I want to you support them all the way. And then that was kind of what got me into concerts. I had never, like I said, wanted to do shows, but after the second show that was super successful, and it was a 2,500 capacity in one of the biggest venues in Toronto before you go to amphitheater level, I was like, okay, well, I can do this for somebody else. And the next artist I did that for was French Montana. And every person I went to, I had met French in 2009 in New York. They were a friend of mine, Rick Steele, who's an engineer producer. And I went to so many different people. I want to do a show with French. And everybody just was like, nah, he's never, came to Canada before. He's not going to sell. It's not going to do well. And I just was like, no, I know it. Like, I know the dope boys are going to come out. Like, I know this is going to be lit. I know it. And he did 2,500 people right off the bat. French came from the strip club doing like one song performances to doing a full 45-minute set in Toronto.
Wow.
It was absolutely incredible. And I was able to put local talent on to open up for the show. And right after French, I did A$AP Rocky. Right after Rocky, I did other artists. I think then I did Trinidad James in New York. And that was the biggest show, the most popular show, I want to say. Then I did A$AP Ferg at SOBs. And I started doing shows both between New York and Toronto. And at this point, I still was not a promoter. Like I did not consider myself a promoter, but I did not have a long-term goal of what I was. So people are like, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm just work with artists, but I didn't have a title.
It's just so, but I think that's, especially when you want something in the music industry, in this creative space, it's kind of hard for you to even trust in your influence to be able to monetize it. You're like, I don't know how to monetize this energy. Like,
I just know how to help this person. I understand something.
I just know how to connect the dots.
Yeah. But I didn't understand my value in the equation. Exactly. The day after we did Trinidad James. He performed All Gold Everything 4 times. I had every executive under the sun in New York City trying to get into that show because it was a 350 capacity. I had to sneak Kevin Lyles and Trey Songz in from the back. I had to sneak the entire A$AP Mob from the back. Like it was ridiculous. Everybody that was in there. And the next week I had meetings with every A&R from RCA to Warner to literally everybody like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I brought an artist. And all of that happened off of relationships. I happened to be on tour in Atlanta with Rocky, and Yams, rest in peace, had asked me to bring out Gucci and Future, and they couldn't make it. So a friend of mine who's working with Trinidad was like, yo, my brother's got an artist. Trinidad, he's lit, you should bring him out. And Rocky and Yam said, yeah, they brought him out. And that was kind of like how that relationship built. And so I was like, yo, let me do his first, after the performance, it's like, let me do his first show. And they're like, okay, well, what do you bring to the table? And I'm like, I can do this. And that's how we made that happen. But after that show, I didn't know that I did something special. To me, it was just, yet again, creating something for an artist, not so much like, I don't know, doing something like I didn't know what my value in the entire equation was. And I just kept doing that. I did that. We did the Travis show in Toronto in 2013, like super early on, because I wanted to support the artist, but not because I understood what my role was in all of that.
Gotcha. When did you go from that to working with French on the day-to-day side?
French asked me the next day after the show. I was literally helping him pack his stuff. And he was like, do you want to be my road manager? And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I had worked with so many international artists, and he was the first one to be like, "There's room for you on my team.
Dang,
Like you bring something to the table, and I want you to be a part of what I have going on." And I think it takes a lot, and I think that's what a lot of people who do things out of good nature expect.
Mm-hmm.
They expect for somebody to recognize that you have value, and for them to speak out and hold you to that and recognize that value. And a lot of times people don't. They don't because they don't know whether you'd be willing to take the position. They don't know whether you'd be available, or maybe like you're not ready for it. So people don't ask. And he did, and I just was like, yeah, I want to. And nothing happened until 2013. I was in Toronto, or 2012, I think. Yeah, the show with the French was in November 2011, and then that's where I introduced him. He met The Weeknd and Belly and the whole the team there. And then 2012, I was working a show with some other artists I was working with at Molson Amphitheater in Toronto, and my phone was ringing, and somebody said, "Hey, I want to book French Montana for a show." And I was like, "Okay." No, and they said, "I want to book French Montana for a birthday party." And I just was like, "Okay, why are you calling me?" It's like, "Well, how much is he?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know." I was like, "Let me get back to you." And then another call came in, and I was like, "Well, I don't know what's going on."
He put you on.
Found
his,
out
like,
that he had
Facebook.
put my phone number on his Twitter for people to call me.
Yeah, he trusted
Didn't
you.
even fucking tell me.
Trusted you. And that's the thing, is like timing and hard work, and like you said, meeting somebody who's willing to call out somebody good and see if they can keep them along for the ride, and incentivize them and make sure they're welcome like that. It's sick. And that's makes me think of
that started the whole work experience. And then after about a year or so, French just was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to like be around and travel and be a part of the entire process." And I traveled back and forth between New York and LA and just was helping him with that.
Yeah. It's like this saying, like, if you want something done, you give it to the busiest person. It's like that's who you are. That's who you were. It's like, I trust this person. This person's working harder than anyone. This person's doing more than anyone. Like,
and it kind of like destroys like that misconception, like over with women in business, they have to be mean in order to like excel. Like with you weren't like this like asshole to people. Like you were like, if I ask anybody about your like, you're nice, you're sweet, and you've been able to like climb. And I wonder, did you ever have to struggle with like men like taking you serious in the industry?
No, I was an asshole from jump.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't. I honestly, not that I didn't struggle with it, I did, but I just was like, I didn't know. If you're not going to help me, I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I say this a lot. It's like, if you just know your shit. I was mindful of the spaces that I occupied, and I was mindful of the conversations I was having and who I was having them with. Right. I think that I was very green to the business, and I wish that I was a little bit more aware of how much doper I was than the credit that I gave myself. Like, fuck that. I should have done a lot more with what I was doing, because I was doing so fucking much. But no, it's like I didn't need anyone to take me seriously for me to execute anything, because I was a show and prove person. Like, I'm going to kill this, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to fucking kill it. And so I didn't need anyone to, like, I remember when I did the Big Sean meet and greet, I went to Stussy. We did the meet and greet at Stussy in Toronto, and I went to Matt George, who owned the complex at the time. He was doing a meet and greet with Bun B. And it was cool. There was people there, and I was outside having a smoke, or he was I was having a smoke, and I was just like, "Yo, Matt, would you let me do an in-store?" And he was like, "Okay." I had never done one before. Mm-hmm. So there was no way to know whether I would be successful or not. And I just was like, "I promise you I'm going to kill it." Like, I don't know. I knew that I had it in my gut that I was going to kill that shit. And he was like, "All right, fuck it. Let's just do it." Fuck, 250 people later in line in minus 26 degree weather, everybody was like, "Please do an in-store at my store. Please do an in-store at my store." So you kind of like, you just have to know your shit. You just have to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Like, I knew that I couldn't do this by myself. So I reached out to Two Dope Boys, and I flew in Mecca, and Mecca was DJing, and I had Hustle Girl on board, and I had all these people on board that would make the show stronger. So it wasn't like, I don't need anyone, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm very specific about how I want something to run, and I want to comp people, and I want the right people in the room. And I don't want somebody to tell me how to do something that I have a vision for. So I just want to execute it, and then hopefully it goes the way I believe it will, and then I can go ahead and sell that idea to somebody else and do bigger and bigger and bigger. But I was never afraid that somebody wouldn't take me seriously, because I just worked so fucking hard that I was like, I didn't know that was even an option.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's like I feel like you really know and how to identify and find opportunities. And
say that again. I know I identified what?
I feel like you really know how to identify and find opportunities. Like listening to this story, that's why I wanted to go all the way back to even where you come from in Albania and those roots, because I'm like, I almost feel like being born in the US or being born in a music place that has such a strong music culture, not that it makes it harder, right? There's an advantage to that. But mentally, it's like I feel like you came into it just with the mindset of like work hard, find opportunities. You identified with the music space for some reason, one or another, and you just took 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. Like you just kind of kept going with it.
My dad always said something. He said, "There's no such thing as I don't know. There's only I don't want to."
Yeah,
that's very
and
true.
So
that's a bar.
If I didn't know how to do it, I'd have to figure it out.
Yeah,
or otherwise, I didn't want it hard enough, and that was that.
It's crazy. When did you start? So, what was it before you went on the road with French, or after you started working with what was it, CP Records at the time? Sal's old company?
Was way earlier.
That was way earlier. Okay, so we jumped ahead, because that to me is super interesting.
Yeah, that was
too.
At the same time, like while I was doing the writing, I was known for writing people's bios. I was just because I was a writer, that kind of became my telling somebody's story just became my strength. This was before the concerts, before anything, and I did some bios for Sal and for Belly, and for some of their artists, and they brought me on board to do marketing for them, to work on the marketing team. So at the time I was working with their company doing that. And I was just spearheading the digital campaigns, the online marketing, and things of that nature. Yeah. And then I moved on to the concerts.
Got it. So I work a lot in digital marketing right now. So I'm really interested to hear what digital marketing was at that time, especially knowing like how far that whole company has come, and the artists that they're working with.
I'm just such a novice at it. Like I want to know about what is it? Honestly.
Yeah, and especially at that time, right? Because it was pretty much like Belly, Masari. Yeah.
Wow, you've done your research. Okay.
Come on. Trying here, we're trying to catch up to people like you.
No, you're not. Stop it. I think it's changed a lot. And I honestly, I think it started off in digital marketing because I understood the era of the internet. But that has changed a lot now. And I consider what I do or what I'm good at a little bit of everything, not just digital marketing. Like there's trends in digital that I still don't understand, even though when I was doing digital marketing, it was Twitter and it was Facebook and it was YouTube and it was, there was no Facebook ads, so to speak, or that run through Instagram. Like that was not a thing. There was no TikTok. There was none of the social media. When you say digital marketing, it was really just connecting with an audience digitally. But at the time, it was a lot more it was easier, I want to say. It was more straightforward. Now you have all these different things that impact different things. Like you could have something that could go viral on Instagram that has nothing to do with TikTok, something that goes viral on TikTok with no connection whatsoever to Instagram, something that's popular culture, but it's not on TikTok necessarily. Like there's just so many different facets, I think, to digital marketing now. So my role initially started in digital because I was a writer for an online magazine, because I understood the online space. But it slowly transitioned into marketing because it was, because it's like, in order for you to properly market someone, you have to understand the space that they occupy, both virtually and in person. Like I can tell you the brands that align with a person's vision based on their style. That has nothing to do with digital marketing. So I know that, for example, I can go to a Supreme and know which artist would align and would sell well with Supreme or with Stussy or with Vape. Like I knew when to do an in-store ad Stussy. I knew when to do an in-store ad Get Fresh in Toronto. I knew when to do an in-store at the New Era store because it didn't align. So I knew the consumer. I think at the end of the day, no matter what, whether it's digital marketing or whether it's regular marketing period, understanding the consumer is key. If I know that you are a person, an artist that spends time on social media, that cares about Instagram, but also is actively making videos on TikTok, realistically, that's where your audience is also going to be. But if you're off that shit entirely, the chance of you going viral on something like that are sparse without, fueling something digitally, because you don't occupy that space yourself. And your consumer, chances are, is probably not on that space, in that space either, right? Unless, again, it's a record, you don't really control it, right? It's like, if something goes, it just goes. So for me, it's always been my understanding, or my execution in marketing, digital marketing, has been understanding the consumer and understanding the spaces they occupy, both virtually and in person, and finding a way to put my artist or the brand in those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. You're connecting the audiences that they should have, but haven't maybe reached yet at times too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Like, an artist might not think. I remember I did an in-store for an artist, and the artist was cool with it. The label was like, I don't know, twice actually, different artists, label still. And I was like, in-store is going to be fire. Fans want to come out and see people in person. They will line up. This is pre-COVID, obviously. They will come out. They'll meet with them, and both times the label felt like it was not a spend that needed to happen. And in both scenarios, lineup was around the corner. Yeah. People were excited. They wanted to buy merch. They wanted to meet. They wanted to take pictures. They wanted to hang. And so the artists kind of knew it, but they didn't know that fans would come out. And I don't know whether it was the location. I don't know whether it was the right partners or what brought the right people out, but people came out. Or the artist, obviously, right? But so sometimes it's also, yes, it's connecting them with new fans, but it's also connecting them with fans that they don't know that they have, and they don't know how, they haven't reached out to yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love that. It's like expanding the story, or giving the story so much more exposure. I think about marketing all the time. I love it, and I love digital marketing. And I was so interested because when I was reading about you, and it was like talking about how you're doing digital marketing at that time, and I do think of digital marketing within this pie of marketing, right? But the way that when I'm working on digital marketing campaigns now, it's like it's just eating up more and more of that pie, especially to like emerging artists, right? Or emerging business. Once you get to a certain level, like some of the clients that I know you're working with, or you've worked with, it's like, once you get to like this certain level with certain clients, then there's this whole other area, I think, of marketing, right? Like that comes into it. But it's just so interesting to think about how quick it's changing. We were just sitting here talking about Clubhouse, 5 minutes before we started this interview, and I'm like paying attention to digital marketing every day and paying attention to Clubhouse, but I'm like, fuck, it's like every day something new is happening that I have to just jump in front of,
Every day.
Yeah.
It's so hard to keep up, honestly. Like I was on Clubhouse early, well, not as early as some people. I was there in September, and I think it got really crowded around November. Yeah. Like when I joined, it was only 10,000 people on the app. Yeah. So the rooms were pretty, like, I knew pretty much everybody that was speaking. Yeah, like calm. I was familiar. Yeah. Philip, when did you join? When did you guys join?
It was around that time where it was calm.
Yeah. It was peaceful. It was calm. When artists started coming on board, I was like, okay. October. Then it went a whole different field. And then more people came. And then it became such a public space. So I feel like when I first joined it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is intimate. It's really dope. You can connect with people that you wouldn't connect with otherwise. You get to hear them speak. And now it's become this massive, massive space. But still, there's people that have really found how to connect with other people in Clubhouse, because they've like seen the transitions that it's made over the course of the months that it's developed, and they've learned how to utilize it. I'm not on it as much as I should. I was at one point onboarding literally everybody that was coming on. People were like, are you a part of Clubhouse? I was like, no.
No, I'm just, I love it.
But I need to go back on there.
Yeah, it's dope. It's dope. I think I'm really interested in hearing, I know that you said, it took you like 6 years to really get Girl Connected going. And, and now that it's going, I'm so interested to hear, like, obviously you don't have to name names, but personal stories of like, this time that you work with somebody, or somebody that you've seen utilize what it's supposed to be and is turning it into something for them.
Watching some of the events on YouTube and some of them.
Could you guys give me 2 seconds?
Yeah, of course.
2 seconds. I'm just looking at something. And then, because I can make something happen.
Oh.
If possible. Nope, it hasn't been announced yet. Okay. There's an announcement that's supposed to come out. Ooh. And it has not come out yet. Sorry.
No, what was it?
I can't tell you.
Wow, I thought we was about to get an exclusive.
Nah, I was hoping that I would give you guys an exclusive, but it hasn't been announced yet. So I was literally just browsing to see if it was. But maybe, hopefully, by the time this airs, you guys can add that in there.
That's true. We will.
I can't say anything yet, just because I'm like waiting for it. No, it's Girl Connected related. So.
I've been seeing it. Seeing the events like take form. I'm like, yo, you had this vision, and now there are a whole bunch of women in this space, and they're learning, and they're being able to connect with other women who want to be in the industry, and you've gotten people to be on this panel, and it's just like, it's incredible.
It is so crazy because there was a few things that influenced Girl Connected. Like, I would get a lot of DMs from people. I happen to have a not large following, but like a average following on Instagram, higher than an average person, because the artists that I've worked with oftentimes have shouted me out, or people have seen me work with artists, and so I've gained an audience. But not because I promote myself on a regular basis, or not because I'm sitting here like promoting everything I'm doing. Like, I'm not an influencer in that space. I might have influence, but I'm not an influencer. Yeah. So I would get people messaging me because they didn't see what I was doing. They didn't know what I was working on. I'm not sitting here sharing tour experiences of being a tour manager and having to balance with a bus driver and having to literally sit there going over gas receipts and toll booth receipts and booking hotels for crew and then canceling hotels and then dealing with per diems. And I'm not putting all of that on Instagram. So people are not seeing that. Yeah. They're not seeing me crashing on the bus or not getting any sleep or doing venue walkthroughs. They're literally seeing me at a party, me on a club after a fucking 24-hour work day. And they're like, oh, you're so cool. I want your life. And I'm like, no, but you don't though. And so I would get all these messages like, I want to do what you do. You're an inspiration. I'm currently working in the music industry, or I'm lost, or I don't have any direction, but I really feel like I want to do this. So that was one aspect of it, that I wanted to give people somewhat of I didn't have time to go for everybody for coffee. Like, if I could go with every person that messaged me, like, hey, I want to pick your brain. If I could sit there and go for coffee with every single person, I would be able to tell you, you want to do tour management, it is not partying with an artist. It might be an aspect of it, but there's tour managers who don't even have a relationship with the artist, who deal with just management, who literally there's no conversations. You're not hanging, you're not kicking it. A lot of the times as a tour manager, you are not even partying with the artist. You got to go to the next venue. You got to go set up, and you can't be butthurt about it. You can have feelings, you can't be emotionally upset about it, because it's your job. When you're working day to day with someone, there's times where you want to quit your fucking job because it's like, yo, this person's not compliant. You're literally babysitting. This shit sucks. And people only see those moments of fun and entertainment. They'll see me on set with Drake and French and be like, oh my God. They'll see me at a house party. They'll see me at Coachella. Oh my God, your life is amazing. I want it. You're a respected woman in the industry. I want to do what you do. And there's so many things that go into making those moments happen. And people don't see that. And I don't show a lot of that on my story. So I was like, if I could go to coffee with some of these women, I'd be able to break down, this is not all glorious. You have to be built for it. You literally have to put aside all personal feelings and emotions to be able to do the job that is required of you. It's not a personal thing. If people are not happy with something you're doing, it's not a personal attack on your personality or on who you are. It's, you just haven't done a job right. And that will happen a lot, you have to put aside a lot of personal relationships. I was working with guys 99.9% of the time. So the chances of me having a relationship was 0 to nothing. I have to be okay with that, Yeah, at that 0 to nothing. They're all 0. So I had to be okay with that. Okay, I'm working. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to focus on. And I remember going on a date once with somebody I met on Bumble, and the second that I found out I would work with French, oh my God, they would just they would work out and send me pictures of them listening to
God.
French. Like I just was like, oh my God, this is so
What
embarrassing.
this?
Like that shit is so corny. Why do guys do that? Like it was just so embarrassing, bro. And I just was like, you're a cornball. No, I'm good. And that was my fear. Like you meet someone, you work with these artists, and then they're like, they feel threatened or feel uncomfortable, they feel challenged. And that's just that was a part of life. And so all of that combined, I was like, what if I could go to coffee with 40 women at the same time? And I could tell them my story if they had questions. And that's where the idea initially started. Wow. And then additionally to that, I'm constantly asked for references. Or I wanted to employ people. I wanted to hire people for projects. And I kept being let down because I had to train people and then only to find out that they were not qualified for this because I read a resume wrong or because they put something on a resume, but in real life, they couldn't actually execute something. Yeah. So that search, and you guys know, I'm sure when you hire people, like that search of finding somebody who's adequate for the job in the music industry is just so fucking tough. So I was like, what if I could, through sharing my story, properly prepare a group of women, because I'm a woman, so I can relate. I can share that story and relate better. What if I could possibly help somebody else who really wants to be in the music business by sharing my journey and others' journeys and give them proper training or proper opportunities to find out how something works in their real life? And that's where the idea came from. Wow. So it took a while to develop it to get to this point. But I'm so happy that like we only finished 1 year. We're in our second year now. And what I don't remember off the top, so I don't want to get this wrong, but there's several of our mentees have gotten positions at labels in different departments. At least 3 I can think of.
And that's what it's about.
There's one got her artist signed to Arista. She was a project manager when she came onto to Girl Connected, and through building the confidence and that she needed, she took on management position and then signed her artist to a major label deal in the US, which was incredible. Wow. There's been a lot that have happened. Is that what you were asking, Troy?
Yeah, no,
like
that's really where I got looking into it, was like, who like are things happening or coming to life through this program that literally make it all worth it, besides just obviously helping people. But I feel like you're kind of just like the story of like, if you want to teach somebody, you give them a fishing pole, you don't just give them a fish, right? It's like that's what this is, right? I'm butchering that, by the way. Somebody tells it way better than me, but it's something like that, right? Where it's like you actually are like, you're giving people a door. Like, this is a door that you can take and you can meet all these other people that I have connections with, and I'm opening all of them up to you. And if you have what it takes, you are going to make something of this, right? So I'm like, who, I'm curious of like, what have you seen? Like that's right there is incredible.
So I'll tell you. So basically we started when we thankfully, in Canada, we do have grant opportunities. And Factor,
shout out Canada for that, by the way.
Factor funded, we applied for Factor to fund. Actually, let me take it back for a little bit. So I've been talking about Girl Connected from 2014. I've been talking about it, but never actually did anything with it. And then friend of mine reached out to me in Atlanta. She worked at WeWork, and she was like, why don't we do a Girl Connected event in Atlanta at WeWork? And I was like, okay, I can do that. And so just whipped up a flyer. This was in 2018. Whipped up a flyer, went to Atlanta and hosted a Girl Connected workshop. It was 20 women that showed up. It was a very small space. But the stories, they had either one was a mom and was managing her kids, and there was different people that were doing different things in the music business and just wanted some guidance. And it was a one-on-one, not one-on-one, but it was like me and the group of 20, right? One of the young girls was 16 with her mom. She came with her mom. Her mom emailed me after, and she was like, what you expressed and what you showed is something that all kids at my daughter's age should have an understanding of, especially if they want to pursue the music business. Would you be open to speaking at schools? If I can speak to the school district in Atlanta, I forgot what school district it was. Would you be open to this? And I never pursued it any further just because I wasn't structurally ready to do that. But made me believe okay, there's something here. This is something that just even in the information space, this is something that could go bigger. Yeah. Then there was a young lady in London, England, who was like, I would love for you to, I want to work with you. You got to do an event in London. And I was like, honestly, if somebody can plan it for me and just do it, and I just got to show up, like, absolutely, I'll do it. So she contacted WeWork in London. She printed out books for me. Like, she did all the work. I flew to London, and I had Caroline Simonescu and Lily Mercer, who had Viper magazine, come through and speak with me. And it was a room of 50 women in London, which was fire because I had never done anything in London before. Yeah. So I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. So we used those 2 events, went to Factor and applied for a grant to host 2 events in Toronto after that. And so we did an event in Toronto with Naomi Zechner, who was editor-in-chief at Fader prior to that, and now works at YouTube, at Google. And then also with Laura Stiles from Hot 97. So I flew them out. We had this event. There was 150 women showed up. It was a free event. 150 women signed up and 150 women showed up. Like, it was ridiculous in terms of like the turnover rate, the attendance rate. And then I went to NYU at Clive Davis and hosted a Girl Connected workshop with Adam Zia, who is French's attorney, about music law and artists, like just contracts and stuff like that. So that was really dope. And then I did a second Girl Connected event in Toronto with Sharifa, who runs Liberty Fairs. She now works at Kith, works with Kith as well as Liberty Fairs trade show, and Jody Taylor, who was at Coveteur magazine. So that was more fashion, editorial oriented, and we did that at Shopify in Toronto. So those were the events that led to us applying for full funding for a program from Factor, and we got that. We got to go ahead, like, yes, you're approved. That was like, okay, Lola, now you got to actually execute this and you got to see this through. So Maria Juliana is my program lead for Girl Connected. Her and I worked like countless hours to come up with programming, to figure out who the mentors would be, to figure out how we would put this thing together. And so we identified Adam Zia. I worked with him for 8 years with French. He was like, I'm on board, whatever you need. So I had Adam, Riggs Morales, who's SVP at Atlantic, also dope, huge supporter of everything that I've been building. Nicole Wiscarco, who was EVP at Interscope. She worked with me on an artist I used to manage, 2 artists I used to manage when she was an attorney practicing law. So I invited her to be one of our mentors, and then Kristen Price, who was at Complex Talent Relations, was our 4th mentor. So what we did was we opened applications. The whole idea was, I want you to be vetted. I want to make sure that I know your resume. I want you to tell me why you want to be a part of this program. I want you to tell me your struggles, your challenges. I want you to have reference letters. I want to make sure that if you want to be here, you want to go through the work that it takes for you to get here. So we put this extensive application together. Shout out to my husband for doing all of that. And 180 women applied for the first year. We went through all of those applications. We accepted 20. We did interviews with, I want to say, 50. We accepted 20 of those mentees, and 5 were working with Nicole on the label services and marketing. 5 were working with Adam on management and artist management. 5 were working with Riggs on A&R, and 5 worked with Kristen on event production. Kristen gave them ComplexCon and said, produce ComplexCon 2020 for me. This was pre-pandemic, obviously. Yeah. Produce ComplexCon 2020. I mean, everything you have, $1.5 million or $3 million, whatever budget hypothetical budget she gave them. Said, you have $1.5 million budget. Go ahead and figure out who the top artists are going to be, what the production is going to look like, who the panels are going to look like, what the panels are going to look like. And then you also have to write the offer letters for those artists that you are planning on putting on your own ComplexCon. And then with Riggs, they had to pitch 3 artists that they would sign to a major label right now, whether they knew them or not. Prepare all the stat sheets, prepare all, like, everything the way you would pitch an artist. With Adam, they had to work on a management contract that he gave them. And then with Nicole, they worked on artist rollout. We give them 5 Interscope artists, and they had to work on a marketing rollout for those artists. And they were doing this all on their own with, like, obviously conversations with myself, with their mentor. And then we brought in different speakers that also participated. and give them examples. So G from Doja Cat's team came and spoke. Monique Blake, Swiss Beats manager, came and spoke to them. We had Matty B from Republic, who does digital streaming, did a workshop. David Amaya from Complex, that was doing Complex Socials at the time, he did a workshop. There was just so many people that came and did it. Ashley Kalamanowicz from Atlantic, she did a workshop. And so they got to speak with so many people in the music business that gave them full insight as to how to properly like run these campaigns. And once they did that and they presented that, they were to work on an artist EP delivery. So whoever had an artist, their job was to work on an EP, and then they partnered with somebody else to see the marketing rollout for that EP, and then they presented that to a group of industry peers. So everybody, we had like Albert from SoundCloud, we had Joel from Amazon Canada, Cardinal joined us, Ivan Evidente from Universal Canada joined us. So we had like both Canadian and US industry and peers, and they presented these artists with their pitch and marketing plan, and then they got feedback from people in the industry on that plan. So it was like a real life scenario, how to do something. And one of our girls launched a publishing company and started representing songwriters. Samira went on to manage full management. I'm trying to I feel like I'm mumbling, but they all got like really, really dope opportunities. And then we brought 4 of the girls from the program, brought them on to join our team for 2021. So Tamisha, join our team as head of content, Vanessa, head of partnerships, Tia works with Vanessa in partnerships, and Shirley works with us on socials.
The way that you just every point.
Sorry, that was so much. I apologize.
No, that's exactly what we wanted, honestly.
It's exactly
and it's
exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, and it's like proof, like even if there are people that just ruled out, okay, this isn't for me, like how important is that? You know, it's like literally, I don't know, just incredible.
And I'm amazed that you were able to get so many people with such influence like yourself to just buy in.
Yeah.
Yo, it was really good. Like we did one event with our mentors in person, brought 400 people out, which was amazing. And then pandemic hit and we had to switch, everything had to be done virtual, which took a toll. And so our mentors, who initially were going to come to Toronto and spend time with the mentees and workshop ideas with them, be in the studio with them, like they weren't available. We couldn't do that anymore. So I was like, okay, I need to find a way to get more people who are working in the music business, who have influence, to also give them other perspectives. And then we had like Justice from LVRN, Lenny S., Raven Verona, Soumya Krishnamurthy, Fadia Kader, Lorianne Gibson. All of these people came and did workshops for our mentees.
And I'm assuming, it was like, did you compensate them all to do it?
We did our best. We tried.
Yeah.
It depends, but
well,
yeah,
people
we did our
it
best
because
to do that.
Yeah, they did it because it's you. You asked.
No, it wasn't the company. Like there was no amount of money that I can give any of these individuals to say like we don't have funding like that to be able to pay people what I know that they should get paid. All of this was done because I fuck with you and I'm doing this because I believe in what you're doing. Amazing. Lenny S. actually joined as one of our instructors for this year. Wow. So Lenny joined us and he leads the management. He's working with 5 of our mentees in the management side.
But that's why it's so important to just like be a good person in this industry, because everything comes back around and you never know when you're going to be doing something or creating something or just helping somebody else, and you need that relationship.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's been really good. We did on Women's Day, we did a radio takeover with Flow. I'm sure you guys are familiar. Flow 93.5 is our radio station. It's like our Hot 97.
Yeah.
And we took over the station for 4.5 hours and had 9 female DJs play different sets. And we raised $22,000 for a women's it's not a shelter, it's like a place, it's a center, Jessie Center. It's a center for moms and young families where they help them with whatever needs they have. So we got Puma on board to sponsor us with that. And it was really, really dope to work. Like Charlie B, who is an amazing Charlie. DJ in the city and does so much in the city. He literally called me and was like, I did this radio takeover to help. It was like it was he donated money to the Black Health Alliance, so he got I want to say like 20 DJs to do a takeover for like 10 hours on Flow. So he's like, for International Women's Month, I would love to do something with Girl Connected. And prior to this call, somebody else called me and said, hey, we're doing an exhibition in New York and would love to involve Girl Connected. And so and there's another announcement that's supposed to go live at some point. Even that, like, just thinking of all of these things that are like aligning with Girl Connected, and for people who see the vision or who see the opportunities that we're providing, that just warms my heart. It just makes me happy. And it makes me feel like, okay, we're in the right direction, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. Such a blessing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think of like just hearing your whole story and hearing you talk about it. I think of like Lola Media Group as kind of like a culmination of everything you've learned to do, and like packaging it and offering it to people and bringing expertise. And then I think of like Girl Connected as still bringing all of the relationships together, but for something greater that just makes really what you're doing even bigger, right? It's like if you try to bring your relationships together just for like business purposes, it's tough. And it's like, it just shows that your incentive of like, you could have taken every person out to coffee or every person's phone call, but that wouldn't have been as helpful, you know? And it would have been a lot more time consuming in a way, but it's like you created this structure, and you reached out to everybody, you know, to create something bigger. And to me, that's how you scale, right? Like you scaled with Lola Media Group by offering those services, and then you scaled again with Girl Connected, which to me is really awesome and inspiring. And I think like it's a lesson for everybody.
Without structure, you wouldn't be able to I'm taking your career in my hands for the next however months that you're in this program. And I'm hoping that you're going to learn something. And of course it depends on the person too, but like the opportunities, like once we launched, once the doors were open, it's like, okay, I can't take this back. Like there's no taking this shit back. Now I can't fuck up. Like I gotta see this through. And that's when the pressure builds, and you start thinking like, how can I grow this, and how can I do better, and how can I think bigger? And like, thankfully my team is like right there, like thinking how much greater we can go. But my husband is the one that thinks like, okay, this is an educational program. This is something that offers proper training. This is when, like, people call me literally just yesterday. Hey, Lola, we have a job opening for XYZ in LA. Do you know somebody? And like, when people are asking me, they're asking for someone who I think has the skills required to do the job. Not because it's just a job opening, because they can post it on LinkedIn or whatever the case is, but they specifically need someone that I might have vetted, or that I might know that based on my experience with them, they could fit that position. And I think that is what Girl Connected has given me the opportunity to do, to vet people, to see their strengths, to see their weaknesses, to see where, like, I remember Tamisha, who's now doing content, she came in thinking of events, and she's like, I don't know how I can tie this all together, and like got a completely different perspective of like where her career would be. And there's certain other people that Shirley came in, and she was doing booking, she was working for an agency. Now my goal with Shirley is for her to do project management, like, and she's working with me on seeing like release projects, like putting them through the platforms, putting them through like whether it's DistroKid or CD Baby, just with different clients and stuff, because she's really capable of doing that. She's able to see like what the overall marketing plan and strategy should look like. But without having seen how she worked within the program, I might not have been able to identify that off of her resume. I would have never known that off her resume. She didn't even know that she was capable of doing that until given the opportunity to try and do it and to learn the necessary information. So I think the program itself just gives me an insight into their careers, their goals, but also like just what they have a knack for. And sometimes like it takes somebody looking at you and seeing how you work to tell you like, yo, you know that you're really good at this, right? Because you can't see it for yourself. Sometimes you think you're good at something, but somebody else can look at it and be like, you're a genius at this. You're really good at this. You should be doing this. And people have said that to me, and I'm like, really? I didn't know I could do that. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I am that.
It's God. I think it's God speaking to you, speaking through other people to like reassure you, like, yo, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah, it's sick, and your reasoning is sick. Like your reasoning of being like, seeing people reach out because they see the pictures or pictures that other people post or what's going on, and just the stuff that comes with working in this business successfully. And you're being like, nah, you know, you need to really get what it is. Like
what's actually going
like
on,
what is that? Like that to me is the sickest, you know?
But But something that you keep bringing up is your husband. Like, how important is he? Like in like as far as like, because I think sometimes there can be a misconception of like, okay, if I get married, like I can't chase anymore, or I can't be as ambitious as like I was if I was single. But it's like you're still like you're going full speed right now, and he's like right beside you, like, yo, go go go. Like, how important is he to your process?
Without him, I would not have seen. I would have been. I know he's gonna want me to credit him for this, but I don't know if I should credit him because I don't. He didn't come up with this phrase. I know it existed prior to him saying this, but he said you can't work on the business if you're working in the business.
Wow.
And so I was so busy just doing shit that I wasn't thinking about structure. I wasn't thinking about growth. I wasn't thinking about. I would see somebody that would be dope and say, I need you to work with me, but I didn't know what their job would look like. What are their responsibilities? I remember having a project that someone didn't do the way I expected them to do it. And then I just was like, damn, they didn't execute properly. But it wasn't them that didn't execute properly. It was me they didn't lead properly because I didn't give them clear goals. I didn't say at the end of this project, I need you to deliver me XYZ thing. It was like, yo, we had this opportunity. We're going to kill it. We're going to do this with this artist. Go. And I assume that if I tell you go, you can just go and figure it out the way I would figure it out. But having structure teaches you, or running a business teaches you that you need to give people structure. People need to know what they are responsible for. People need to know what they need to do or how you want something done. And so what Jason has been very good at is to try to get me to look at my company as a company, not as Lola just ripping and running, doing everything left and right that she could. So he's been instrumental in the growth of my company and on the establishing my company as a business that functions whether I'm in it 24/7 or whether I'm not. And I attribute a lot of that growth to him, and it's not stifling at all. If anything, he dreams way bigger and way higher. If anything, my dreams are this big compared to his. Wow. Like, I have like long-term goals where I want this when I'm 50 or 60, or I want this. But in terms of like company growth, he thinks way, way, way further ahead. Like Girl Connected, when I broke down how I envisioned it, he was just like, okay, educational program, hiring program. Like he's literally thinking worldwide. He's thinking, and I'm thinking mentorship, guidance. Yay, we get to help people. And he's like, no, think on a global scale, So his ambition is definitely pushes me to do bigger and better things. And I'm thankful that he's so confident in my abilities, and he's so confident in like the partnership that we have. Like we're joined at the hip, literally. So it's never been one of those things where, well, I'm doubting myself, or he's doubting me, or he's wondering what I'm doing or why I'm talking to people or whatever. Like that's never been a part of our relationship, because it's always been like, we're born 2 days apart. I'm January 26th, he's January 28th. Wow. We're literally identical.
Y'all both
so like,
that's crazy.
Both Aquariuses. So, and our minds both work the same. Like we're literally like crazy. But we're both very committed to like, if I say I'm gonna, like if I'm in this, I'm in this. If I'm not in this, I'm not in this. And that's all that I need to say. Like there's no more questioning that,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Like, no, of course. Are you kidding? I'm sorry that we rescheduled again.
No, this was perfect. Like I learned a lot. I'm inspired, and I hope that people who listen like are super inspired too. Like this was important, and I think there are a lot of women who just like aspire to be in the industry but don't know how to navigate it. And it's really dope that you've created a platform where people can go, in a website and a movement that is getting way bigger than you ever imagined. And there's some news that's about to come out that we can't know yet, that is just another step in the evolution of Girl Connected. So thank you so much, Lola, for coming and sharing this platform.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. No, it was and it was honestly, you agreeing to do this and being able to dive in and learn all of this and then have you talk about all of it is inspiring. So really appreciate this, and we're excited to put this out.
You guys are great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your week.
Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
You too.
See ya.
Tell Isra I said hi and I love her and I miss her, please.
I will.
And please give your baby a little kiss for me. Oh my God, it's getting so big.
I will. Thank you.
I love him. You guys are so blessed. He's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
You're welcome. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.